you done now?
Candlestick? What's this for?
In your hands, you each have a lethal weapon. If you denounce me to the police,
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Clue the Movie Podcast, where we break down the 1985 cult classic movie Clue 1 minute at a time. My name is Brad Gilmore. I'm joined, as always, by my podcasting cohort, General Jeff Smith. Jeff, how are we?
I am a real general.
You are.
Yes.
You are.
Yes,
and returning this week, back by popular demand, he is the author of What Do You Mean Murder? Clue and the Making of a Cult Classic. The author, John Hatch, joins us. John, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be back.
We're excited. So we're at minute 27. It begins with Miss Scarlet asking, "What's this for?" and ends with Mr. Body explaining what that's for. Or at least starting it. Jeff, I start with you. First impressions of minute 27.
I want to know, when Mr. Body starts he specifically hands the weapons to everybody. So, and as we discussed last time, the boxes are shaped perfectly for the weapons. So he knows exactly what he's handing to each person. And I'm just throwing the question out to the room. Why did the people get what they get? Because I'm pretty sure no one uses their actual weapon as the movie goes on, the one that they get. That's not true.
I think one,
on the ending,
at least
Mrs.
one
White does.
Well, I think that Professor Plum.
Well, he tries.
Right.
Yeah.
Mrs. Peacock does.
Mrs.
Mrs.
Never
Peacock
mind. I'm
in,
wrong.
I think,
why
two.
did the weapons get to who they got to?
This is a great question. I think there might be like an obvious joke, as John was talking about for the last in the last minute about Miss Scarlet, why she got the candlestick. I think you can draw your own conclusions there. But I don't know, John, any theories on why Mrs. White got the rope, Miss Peacock got the knife, Green the pipe, Mustard the wrench, or Plum the revolver?
I haven't ever thought about why they got it. Because, yeah, Jeff's exactly right. I mean, Mr. Body knows exactly who's getting what. Mr. Green gets the lead pipe, and Professor Plum gets the gun. Maybe it says something about their personalities, that this is, Mr. Body thinks that this is the weapon they're most likely to use, because he has to get rid of Wadsworth. And so he thinks that, Mrs. Peacock, she's cold and she's the kind of person that'll look you in the eyes while she plunges a knife into you. I don't know.
No, I think he's onto something. The et tu brute of Mrs. Peacock is for sure. Like, that is something that she would do. And she's a politician's wife. Politicians will say something in your face and then do the opposite behind closed doors. I think that we have the knife I can figure out. Maybe Professor Plum, he's not the most, well, I don't know. I was going to say he's not the most aggressive individual, but he is.
Not to them.
Right? But I'm just wondering, like, to me, okay, a gun's the easiest one. So maybe he's not the most physically imposing, and he needs a projectile firearm in order to get his kill. I don't know. I mean, what's coming to your mind, Jeff? You asked the question.
Well, I mean, when I was thinking about the wrench with Mustard, his whole crime is stealing parts from military What's he stealing? It's the
to help with the atom bomb, right?
yeah, but he's stealing parts. It's like literally
Air Force radio parts.
There you go. Yeah,
radio
yeah,
parts.
yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So he's good with tools, I guess.
I can get by that.
Stretch.
Mrs. White definitely seems like she would strangle someone.
Yeah.
Like with she seems
Well,
like
the
she
way
would throw a noose around someone's neck.
Yeah, well, the way she adjusts Wadsworth's collar later in the movie, she practically has her hands around his throat.
That is true. So maybe these are the reasons why. I think that we've personality traits, I think, are the biggest things that we can connect them to, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't think there are a lot of accidents. This script by Jonathan Lynn, he definitely, I don't think he left anything to just because.
Now, what stood out to you, John, first impressions of minute 27?
First impression, my impression when I was a kid watching Clue was how, I don't want to say boring, but I was really struck by these were like weapons that were not, they didn't seem like they came from the game. They didn't seem like they just seemed almost random. And I was struck by that. And then I've learned that they were meant to be random. They wanted existing things. They did not want these elaborate weapons designed by the production team for the movie. It kind of goes along with how how Jonathan Lynn has said he very deliberately didn't dress the characters in the color of their token because he didn't want that call out. I think it's similar with the weapons. He just wanted something that, Mr. Body could have gone and rounded up. And that seems to be what he did. All of that stuff is real stuff. So he could have gone and found it anywhere.
Yeah, the knife almost looks like a letter opener. It's so small.
It does. Yeah, it has a letter opener feel to it. But I guess I understand the randomness of the weapons. But again, you took the time to put them in these beautiful packages. Like if this was a last minute, let me see what I got around the house. I think I got a rope somewhere. I don't know. I'll say the first thing that stood out to me about this scene, it starts with a close-up of Miss Scarlet. And I will say I'm always taken aback by the beauty of Leslie Ann Warren. I mean, she is so gorgeous. Was she a favorite of yours, John, back in the day? Was she a top 5 for you? As far as I
was too young when the movie came out, but as I got old, I was always struck by her too. And of course, Yvette, and Colleen Camp, but Leslie Ann Warren, she is so beautiful in this movie and in anything she's in, really.
Yeah, she's aged very well too. I will say. Now we have the passing out of the weapons. Mr. Body's about to explain the reason why they have these weapons, but I want to actually jump back to something in minute 26 because Jeff, we've gone back and forth on what Mr. Body's real participation was and is in this whole film, right? Because in the letter that they get, they say, an individual or Mr. Body will bring to an end a long financial burden or what have you. I'm paraphrasing, right? And then Mr. Body says, I too got a letter, right? And I think in the last minute, he was saying, Wadsworth told me, Wadsworth said if I didn't come here tonight, the police, he was going to call the police and kind of rat me out. So what are we to believe? So at this point, we have to think that Wadsworth, 100%, I don't think there's any argument anymore. He sent the letters.
Yes. John, go ahead.
Right? I mean, it's 100%. There's no way he didn't.
Yeah. He did say, he says so later. Yeah, that's right. He says so later. He's like, I wrote the letters. In fact, I invited you. And then he says later too, that as he's explaining things, he invited all of the informers as well.
Right. So nothing was random about the night, but for Wadsworth to have the information, right? Because he was reading, I'm instructed to read this. I'm instructed to read that. I've been left this to read, right? It does. So all of that is make-believe. He wasn't instructed to do anything. He instructed himself. So I guess he's trying to play along with the charade. I don't know, Jeff, what is his purpose of doing that? of setting all of this up that way and to make it seem like he doesn't know anything? And two, how did he get the information to read? Did Mr. Body give it to him to read? I mean, I don't understand.
Well, he was Mr. Body's butler, so it's if you believe that in 2 of the 3 endings. He does say later, I was his butler. So I always thought that he came across this information somehow and thought that Mr. Body was an odious man and wanted to basically punish him and free all the people that are indebted to him. And that's why he brings it all together. He basically says that later down in the movie. That's why he brought them all together, to basically turn on him, like in their safety in numbers.
But John, do you think that he couldn't have gotten this amalgamation of individuals together any other way than through having this ruse of a dinner party?
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, when he does confess later, it's kind of when he's breaking down and he seems really upset Mr. Body's dead. And so I think he had no intention of telling them that he was the one who did this. He only does it when they've confronted him and asked him, what is going on here? So it does seem like he had this ruse in mind, that he was going to get everybody there and act like the innocent guy who was just provided this information. He does have evidence that I'm sure, I don't know what minute that'll be, but there's going to be a minute that you'll get to where you get a glimpse of that evidence on the table. And it was created by the production team, and you get a glimpse of Colonel Mustard and Mrs. White and Mr. Green. But how he got that, we'd have to assume that as Mr. Body's butler, he was able to collect it. And all of this is kind of for revenge for his wife. And so he admits that, Mr. Body, destroyed his life and destroyed his wife. And so he's getting his revenge.
Yeah, I guess that you're right. Maybe he did some sort of snooping ahead of time, and that's how he got the information. Because again, he would have to know, not only would he have to know what they were being blackmailed for, he would have to know how to send them a letter. Like, I need addresses. Mr. Body had some really detailed files here.
They get their mail. Well, I would actually, this is a question I'd like to propose to John, because this came up a couple episodes ago where we were talking about why is Wadsworth recording all the entire meeting in the study. What is his purpose for having it all tape recorded? Because I hit a wall on that one. I remember you asking me that, Brad, and I said, I don't know.
the recording, so it seems like, so if we're going to go like in movie universe, the recording seems to be to get Mr. Body's confession, and then he has everything on tape for the police when the police arrives. In the first draft of the screenplay, Mr. Body or Wadsworth does not collect or turn off the recorder. It keeps going. And then that plays a role at the end of the movie. The recording device captures the confession of different murderers at the end. And especially Wadsworth's in the cut fourth ending that was written. That was kind of the whole point of having the recording still going. But then in the second and third draft, he goes and collects it and keeps it so that he has Mr. Body's confession.
Yeah, because it almost seemed as though
really confess. He doesn't really confess. He just says, "Let's kill Wadsworth."
Well, I mean,
so maybe that was it. That was his plan. I think John's
kind of a crime there.
Yeah, that's fine. That's nothing. This is getting serious. I think John's right. He expected to get something else, and maybe that's why he turns it off, because he's like, well, that didn't work.
Yeah.
So I'll collect this, and then it gets burned.
Yeah, then it gets burned. It was interesting, because to me at first I was kind of like, wait, is he recording this to have his own blackmail? Because he's recording everyone admitting to their blackmail. Not only Mr. Body admitting to being the blackmailer and then saying, let's kill Wadsworth, but he was recording everybody admitting their blackmail. So it almost seemed, as we know, in one of the endings, he was like, hey, I'm going to continue this on. Like, what are you going to do about it? It was almost a reinforcement of of the evidence that he's collected. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Although the only person that really confesses to her blackmail is Miss Scarlet. Everybody else denies.
Oh, that's true.
Mrs. White denies.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Leslie Ann Warren.
He gets cornered, but he doesn't actually say, I did anything.
Mr.
Yeah,
Green.
he doesn't quite confess. He kind of said, Mr. Body kind of says, well, he does say, he says, if you expose me to the police, then you'll all be exposed too. So he kind of hints at it and stuff. But yeah, it's true. Leslie Ann Warren, Miss Scarlett seems to be having a lot of fun when everything's red. She just loves it, like watching everyone squirm. But she gladly owns up to it.
Well, I think that
the fact that she takes glee in the revelation of Mrs. White's husband being dead, she picks up on that joke real quick.
Yeah, she definitely does seem to be the one who's enjoying herself the most out of the night. And when we look at the 6 characters who are paying the blackmail, I would say other than Mr. Green, if that is the real Mr. Green, but we don't think it is anymore, other than Mr. Green's only crime in the 50s being gay, I think that she's probably the least innocent of the bunch. Right?
You mean the least guilty?
The least guilty, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, she's got a brothel. It's all good.
I mean, hell, when did Best Little Whorehouse in Texas come out? Because what's her name? Wow, why am I blanking on Dolly Parton? She's like the protagonist of the film. We're rooting for her, the brothel owner, the entire time, and we're against the media. So it's not like it was a really a taboo thing, because the Chicken Ranch was here in Texas. It was like, I don't know, 60 miles north of me.
That's right. Every Western, they end up like in a saloon. If you look upstairs, it's always the
Back to the Future 3
hanging out. Yeah. Bill and Ted.
Shanghai Noon.
Yeah, we're talking about the classic Western.
Yeah.
Back to the Future and Bill and Ted and Shanghai Noon.
Now was there?
Board is rolling.
Was in the original or anything of your research, John? Was there anything regarding? This is what I was going to ask. Was there anything different from the crimes that are alleged in the movie than were alleged in the screenplay? Like, was Mrs. Scarlett always a brothel madam? Were they all kind of to the T what they were accused of in the original draft?
Yeah, they were. It's pretty remarkable. Jonathan Lynn wrote at least 5 versions, and from the ones that I have seen, they're very similar. I mean, there's definitely some changes here and there, but it's more cosmetic. I mean, yeah, like we talked about last episode, he eliminated some profanity. He eliminated some of the sexual innuendo. The first draft to the second draft, he changed his British English to American English. So he wrote that Colonel Mustard grabbed a torch. And then in the second draft, that becomes a flashlight. And so that's it. But no, all their crimes were exactly the same. Yeah, none of that changed. There's an early draft out there that I still haven't seen. And I think that was his first whack at it. And I don't know how different that would be, but probably still not very different. But then there was a preliminary draft after that I've seen. And then 1, 2, 3, he did 3 that he actually called first draft, second draft, third draft. And it's pretty consistent. It's really amazing, actually, that the movie is set down is so similar to what it is. I don't think that happens very often with these screenplays.
That's what I was going to ask, Jeff. I mean, someone who's written screenplays before, I'm sure, and we've talked about it. I don't know if it was on the show or off air, but we've talked about how you've had multiple drafts of a single story. Do you find it difficult to go back and have to like kind of in that second draft? Do you notice like you're changing a lot or a little? Because I'm kind of with John. It seems to be kind of crazy that from draft 1, or at least the first one that John read, to what we saw on screen, it is so similar.
I think a lot of times when drafts get rewritten, at least for me, it's cutting out fat. Really, it's a lot of the basic ideas pretty much stay from when you're with your outlined characters stay the same. Their goals usually stay the same. Although I had heard, John, you can attest to this. Mrs. Peacock and their script was very different than Eileen Brennan as far as she was pretty nasty, and not as flighty as that obviously Eileen Brennan brought to her. She was more like, it was very obvious she was the evil behind the senator.
Yeah, that was very true. Like, and that's that's true to a degree with all of the characters, but especially Mrs. Peacock. Jeff, I think it was you that said the last episode that these are all horrible people on paper, but it's amazing the way these actors make them fun and if not likable, at least funny, and kind of charming in their own way. And Eileen Brennan did an amazing job with that. Yeah, she was written. What I compare her to is Emily Brent in And Then There Were None. That's actually kind of how she was written, as sort of this
tight,
just uppity and uppity stuff.
That's a better word than I almost said.
Mean and very willing to. The first draft of the screenplay had a lot more on the Red Scare and McCarthyism, and so there's some lines in there about her threatening Mr. Green that you sound like a communist, and he panics and stuff like that. But yeah, she was pretty nasty. Some of the other characters, though, I'm always, after doing this book, I think the person I'm most impressed with is Leslie Ann Warren. Miss Scarlet was pretty different, and Leslie Ann Warren made her just really this ruthless woman in a really just perfect way, just perfect. Yeah. 'Cause she was a lot more passive. When Professor Plum stops to get her in the script, she's supposed to be really nervous that this car is stopping. And instead in the movie, she's bending over it and trying to get his attention. And she just does not blink an eye. She has no fear.
He asked what a lift, and she, yes, please.
Yeah.
What would be, I wonder why they would want her to be nervous.
I don't know. I think as she's a woman out in the middle of nowhere and this car's stopping.
I'd be nervous.
But yeah, a lot of the stuff where she tells off Professor Plum or is pretty aggressive with him, getting him to back off, isn't in the script. Michael McKean spilling the soup on her and mopping her up. The line, "Hey, watch it," that's not in the script.
Oh, wow.
So I think a lot of that was her. Yeah.
Wait, so I had always heard, because I've never read the screenplay for Clue or any of the drafts. I've only seen the movie. I always heard that the only improv line was the flames on the side of my face. Is that still the case, or was there more improv than that?
That's the one that gets a lot of attention. There were a few, though. I mean, nothing that was necessarily. There were things that the characters would bring up with Jonathan Lynn, the director, or he would bring up with them, and they would make decisions about. So one that was just a few minutes prior to this episode was the line from Colonel Mustard. "I came into money during the war when I lost my mommy and daddy." That was Martin Mull's idea. It was supposed to be when I lost my parents, and he pitched that to Jonathan Lynn, and Jonathan was like, "Great, let's go with it." There were a few more things like that, but of course the flames, reign supreme of the But overall, there wasn't a lot. There was not ad-libbing, but they would come up with ideas, and it's not always clear who it was. The shot when Professor Plum and Miss Scarlet arrive, again, Leslie Ann Warren, where Professor Plum gropes her. He actually puts his hand on her. That was shot a month later because it's not in the screenplay. And at some point, they came up with this idea like, hey, let's have him do this. So that whole arrival, they shot that on one day. And then a month later, they shot that insert shot of him kind of grabbing her. And none of that is in the screenplay. In fact, she's kind of huddling under him, and he's got his arm around her to protect her from the rain, and she's appreciating it. That's what's in the screenplay, but in the movie, she just throws him off. It's great.
So they shot that a month later, you said?
Yeah.
That's funny. I'm sure Christopher Lloyd's like, what do I got to do? I got to show up and do what? Oh, I can make that. We can make that work. Well, I don't
tell him it wasn't my idea.
It just wasn't my idea, but I'll be there.
Yeah, I'm not the writer. That's why I pretend I don't remember anything about Clue. I won't be in your documentary.
No, I will not do it. I will not read for your book.
No. Sorry, I'm fine with it.
You're not working through anything right now.
No, it's all good.
It's all done.
It's all.
Well, I don't know if I see anything else for minute 27 that we need to cover. I think that we have it all. John, do you feel good about moving on?
I feel pretty good about moving on. The one thing I'll say is, Go watch the Italian giallo film Deep Red, and you'll see the knife sticking out of another murder victim. It's the same exact knife.
They used the same knife.
Yeah.
There's
The knife was Yeah, there's the knife was a World War II fighting knife that they gave soldiers, that they gave British soldiers. So it turns up here and there.
Wow. Did not know that.
I love that kind of stuff.
Did not know that. Well, look at that. Well, we'll have more on that and stuff like that in our next minute. John Hatch, where can they get the book again? Wherever books are pre-orderable?
Wherever books are pre-orderable. Barnes & Noble, Amazon, bookshop.org.
And Jeff, the cluedoc.com?
Yeah, that's all you need.
That's all you need.
Yeah. Hopefully there will be something to buy one day.
There will be. Yeah. Trust me.
Yeah.
I'm still waiting on my copy, by the way. I haven't purchased.
It hasn't come yet?
It hasn't come yet. Hasn't come yet. I'm eagerly anticipating. Trust me. You'll know when I get it. The Instagram and Twitter post.
UK like the 2 days after they started shipping it.
Okay, maybe.
Which I didn't know it was being shipped until I got the email and said mine was being shipped. They really played the Blu-ray release of Whodunit close to the vest. When I found out it was available for pre-order, it was the day it came available for pre-order. I never saw it beforehand. If I had, maybe all the bonus features would have been on the disc. But it's all good.
Are you still working
just
through something?
Just a little gripe as the episode ends.
It happens. It happens. Well, you can follow me on all social media at Brad Gilmore. We'll be back with minute 28 of Clue the Movie.